Welcome to OurSport. The playoffs are set. We're going to get into it on this episode. Let's go. So, as I said before, welcome to OurSport. My name's Larry. I'm your host. My son John is doing all the recording and editing. We had a pretty big spike in viewership last episode. So let me state again for our new viewers what we're all about here in case you're wondering. Basically, John and I are football nuts. We love the sport. We don't like other sports. We don't follow baseball or hockey. We just don't care. But we adore the sport. And this is a weekly YouTube channel focusing a lot on college football, on the NFL, and the NFL draft. So if you are kind of crazy about football, a fan, we try to cover every single team. We can't always, of course. Subscribe, turn on notifications. If you know anybody that's a little goofy with it, likes it like we do, tell them about it. We're going to be here every week. We're not going anywhere. So the playoff matches are set. We're going to talk about each of these games later on in another episode, previewing specifically what each team has to do to win their respective playoff game. Right now, I want to talk about these programs from a broader perspective, what this playoff appearance means for each of these programs. For LSU, this season was defined by one person, and that was Joe Burrow, who was the difference in at least 4 of these games that were close, because he's playing the position at a virtually perfect level, at an unsustainable level. We've never seen a quarterback play at a level this high, and they still had 4 close games. This tells me that this is a good team, and he is the difference in there. LSU fans complain about this for years. If we just had a quarterback, we have all these weapons at the skill positions. You're right. Well, you get the bonus plan, because he's just not playing well. He's playing phenomenally. Now, the odds are you're not going to have a Joe Burrow on your team next year. He's gone himself, of course, but I mean somebody playing like this. Joe Brady, the offensive assistant, gets a large share of the credit, but Burrow himself will be gone. What does that mean? That means you'd probably be 8-4 without him this year. You might have been in the Citrus Bowl, but you have him for this year. You have him for this year, and I don't know what's going to happen in that playoff game against Oklahoma. I would be shocked if Joe Burrow does not play great in that game, barring injury. That I'd be pretty confident in. Ed Orgeron, the head coach, was the former coach at Ole Miss, really well-regarded recruiter, really, really special in terms of what he could do with defensive linemen. Coached the defensive line in Miami, Warren Sapp, Dwayne Johnson, of all people, was on that team. Coached the defensive line at USC under Pete Carroll, the backbone of those defenses with defensive line play. And that he can do. Well, now he's shown he can be a CEO. Now he's shown he can run a program. Can he overtake Alabama? If you have more Joe Burrows hanging around, sure you could. I'm not disrespecting the man. The man's clearly a good coach. I want to pump the brakes a little bit. Let's have a couple of more years and see how he does. The number 2 seed, the Ohio State Buckeyes, really a phenomenal year because this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen where you have a new head coach and a new quarterback and you just roll through an undefeated season. You don't play any close games until your conference championship game, really. And you just kind of blow through all your opponents, and a new quarterback learning a new system, a man learning how to be a head coach, aside from Ryan Day we're talking about, aside from the 3 games he coached as interim last year. Clearly, the man is competent at this. He's had NFL experience. One of the questions now is, will NFL teams pursue him? And there's talk that he might go to the NFL. He might want to go there. But for right now, he's got a complete team. This team is more complete than LSU. This team is balanced on both sides of the ball. This team has a defense that's a top 5 defense to go with this offense that's multidimensional, weapons all over the place at receiver, a dominant running back, and then a quarterback who's playing mistake-free football and is also a run threat. Almost impossible to defend. Obviously, the record shows that. What does this mean for the program long term? Well, they're recruiting at a great level. They're not recruiting at Urban Meyer levels because nobody ever does beside Nick Saban. But it doesn't mean you can't be a dominant team in your conference and a major threat for the playoff every year. If Ryan Day stays, that's the question. The question is he really who he looks like? Because he looks like a great coach right now. You know who else looks like a great coach? Larry Coker at Miami. Because Butch Davis handed him a team full of NFL players. And Urban Meyer has handed him a team full of NFL players. Now, he did what he's supposed to do. But if you slip in recruiting, which you could, because if you come down one notch from Urban Meyer, you're still a great recruiter. But if you slip one notch on recruiting, that might be the difference between going 10-2 every year. Buckeye fans don't like going 10-2. So just like Orgeron, for me, the jury is still out with Ryan Day. I'm not saying anything negative against the man. Him and Ed Orgeron, phenomenal jobs this year. You have to give them credit. I mean, they're undefeated. Let's see long-term what this means for the program. Is this sustainable? I'm more curious about it than skeptical. The number 3 seed, the Clemson Tigers. I think this is the most dangerous team in college football. This team looks exactly like last year's team, exactly, in terms of how the season is playing out. Last year, they had a close game against Syracuse. Managed to pull that game out. It's like a flip switch. Just started dominating all their opponents, including all their playoff opponents. Beat 12-0 Notre Dame. Dominated Alabama in a way that nobody had done till then. And this year's the same. They had a close game against North Carolina. Trevor Lawrence playing spotty, not playing well. Remember that? Remember when that was a thing? That is gone. That is not the case anymore. And now this team is a buzzsaw. This team is just killing everybody in their way. And the worst thing that could happen to Ohio State, or maybe any opponent they have, is that Clemson got put number 3 in the rankings. Because this team's won 28 games in a row. And they have this phenomenally talented quarterback, throwing a phenomenally talented receiver. They got talent everywhere. And what do you have to do to, not be the number 3 seed, to be the number 2 or 1 seed? And he gets to play the underdog role, and he will. And he will. And you have a team that's going to be fully motivated in their game against Ohio State. Ohio State better bring their A game because Clemson will. What it means long term, Dabo Swinney, unlike these other 2 coaches, I know what he is. He's a known commodity. And the scary thing is, for all their opponents, they've really kind of done this without top 5 recruiting classes for a long time. He just knows what good players look like. he finds them under the radar. Well, you look at the recruiting class coming in now, it might have the most 5 stars ever. They're calling it maybe the greatest recruiting class ever for a team. And it's built on a quarterback and a whole bunch of defensive linemen. So Clemson is not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. And not to mention Trevor Lawrence comes back next year. I don't know that this team wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if this team blew out Ohio State. I wouldn't be surprised at any outcome. I'd be surprised if Ohio State blew them out. But and you don't imagine Ohio State getting blown out, but you didn't imagine Alabama getting blown out last year. And this looks exactly like last year. The number 4 team, Oklahoma. I can't tell you the difference I think Jalen Hurts has made with this team. Of course, they had great quarterback play the last couple of years because Lincoln Riley does this. Jalen Hurts had natural improvement. You could see it his last year at Alabama. But I love his demeanor. I love the way this kid acts on the sideline, especially when anything is going on around him is chaotic. Any kind of chaos around him seems like the more that happens, the calmer he gets. He's reserved, he's focused, he's serene. How about mentally tough? Because they were losing by 25 points at Baylor. If they don't get up off the mat and fight back, they're not in this playoff. They're not. I don't know who is, Wisconsin, Georgia, whoever, but they're not in the playoff if they don't do that. And he would not let them fail. They are going to be underdogs to LSU. I would be surprised a little bit if Oklahoma beats LSU. I guess everybody would. But I wouldn't be completely shocked because I expect him to play well. Him and Lincoln Riley together, maybe the best receiver in the country in C.D. Lamb. What it means in terms of the program, it means that Jalen Hurts is going to have a great year. Already has. Going to be a first-round pick. And they're going to get somebody else in here next year that is just going to do the same thing, assuming Lincoln Riley's not, head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, whatever. Derek King from Houston is going to transfer in. He doesn't do this with his own recruits. He doesn't have to. Why would you want to do that if you're Lincoln Riley? Why would you want to get a freshman in here? I can just get a guy who's played 3 years of football somewhere else, his experience, and I can just put him in my system and roll. And you're gonna be maybe the first choice for a lot of those guys because you've proven what you could do. At least Oklahoma has this, even if they lose this game. They're dominating this conference right now. Texas is not close to them. Baylor had a great year. That's not sustainable because that coach is gone. Matt Rule is out of there, I bet, after this season. I'd be surprised if he wouldn't. He already talked to the Jets last year about joining, being their head coach, and NFL teams are all over him. So it looks like Tom Herman is leagues away from what Lincoln Riley is doing, assuming Lincoln Riley stays. This is also the time of the year we have a lot of turnover in coaching. Jobs coming open. Surprisingly, Washington came open. The Washington Huskies. Chris Peterson retired. Cited stress. Of course, this is a situation for a lot of coaches. And his replacement is the defensive coordinator, Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake was also coaching the defensive backs. He started out coaching only the defensive backs, kind of worked his way up through the ranks at Washington. And the man knows how to coach defensive backs because you look at some of the guys he's had the last 4 or 5 years. Marcus Peters, first-round pick. Kevin King, huge corner, 6'3", first pick in the second round. Sidney Jones, second-round pick at corner, would have been a first-rounder if he didn't tear his Achilles during a pre-draft workout. Found a guy, Taylor Rapp, out of nowhere. Nobody knew who this kid was a starter the minute he got on campus at safety. He ended up being picked by the Rams. Jimmy Lake knows defensive backs, and Jimmy Lake knows defense because those defenses have been strong for Washington the last couple of years. Also, have to love this. Jimmy straight up trash talked Mike Leake. Straight up trash talked him basically to the media saying, Mike Leach, the Washington State head coach, saying, yeah, we love that system. I'm paraphrasing now. Because the guy does the same stuff every time. And I love playing against him because he's so predictable. Well, the proof's in the pudding because Jimmy's never lost to him. He's beat him every time. And a little bit of saltiness in the Apple Cup. This is a good hire. You could have gone out and found somebody else, but the guy is ingrained in that system and that culture. He knows the recruiting. I think Washington's going to have a good transition. It's going to be a harder place Chris Peterson because, man, that dude had a lot of respect. People had really a lot of high regard for him as a coach. He wasn't known by a lot of fans because he wasn't a self-promoter, Peterson was. He hated it. He hated the media. He hated the spotlight. He hated doing all that. I think it probably hurt recruiting. But he just believed in himself and his ability to find players and develop them and did really a good job. He was there a short time, but the Huskies fans are already talking about him in pleasant tones. They know that he was an asset for their program. Jimmy Lake looks like a really good hire for the Huskies going forward. Meanwhile, at Florida State, in what was a weird coaching search for a while, I remember a few years ago, I have a lot of buddies who are Florida State fans, and they hired Willie Taggart. And they're like, what do you think? I'm like, this hire is going to be a disaster. This thing is terrible. They could have got so many better coaches than they got Willie Taggart. And I had a couple of buddies afterward very sadly tell me, you know what, you were right. I'm like, yeah. I mean, you could just see that he had a spotty coaching resume. Now, that's out. They get Mike Norvell from Memphis. Different story. Mike Norvell, a lot of success. And really he had a UCF problem at Memphis. He was so close to winning that conference if it wasn't for UCF. Well, the whole conference had a UCF problem. Finally got over the hump, beat Cincinnati in back-to-back weeks, and finally won the American Conference. And you look at if you're a Florida State fan, what do you have to look forward to? What can we expect from Mike Norvell? Let me tell you what you can expect. First of all, he's going to find great skill position players everywhere because he had them stacked. He had Patrick Taylor, had Tony Pollard, had all these guys at all the skill positions, and when they're gone, fine, no problem. Assembly line. Put Kenneth Gainwell in there. He just would roll these guys through there and had great quarterback play. Guys in offensive mind. Also, if you look at his tenure, special teams, great special teams, tons. Kickoff returns, an asset to their team. And if you're a Florida State fan, this is what you want to hear most. Because what's been your Achilles heel for 2 or 3 years? It's been your offensive line. And Memphis has had one of the best offensive line coaches, Ryan Silverfield. If he brings him along with him, this offensive line was so productive. Every running back they had for a while there was averaging 7-8 yards a carry, no matter who they put behind the offensive line. That's not an accident. There were some great players. Like Tony Pollard had skill by himself, but he was getting help. So Florida State, their Achilles heel has been the offensive line for years. And this goes from a weakness to potentially a real strength because Florida State's going to get better offensive line prospects than Memphis ever did. And you start doing that, you almost don't have to recruit a Florida State defense. They're going to recruit themselves. They're always good on that side of the ball. A great hire for Florida State. There's been some questions, some off-the-field stuff about Norvell I've heard. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't have any verification of it, but I know this was a factor before when he wasn't hired other places. He had got interviewed. We'll see if any of that comes out. The other job that opened up, I want to talk about Lane Kiffin from Florida Atlantic. The former head coach goes to coach the Ole Miss Rebels. You cannot have two more different coaches in terms of personality and fun than Matt Luke and Lane Kiffin. Matt Luke, poor guy, got dealt a bad deck of cards. He could do only what he could with that personnel, considering on probation and all the other things he had to deal with. And, the thing about Lane Kiffin, he's known as being immature. He's known as having chaos around his program. He's also known for putting up a lot of points. And for a program that's dealt with chaos for a little bit, this is more par for the course. And you're going to have things like this, I bet. You're going to have Lane Kiffin all of a sudden lose to a team he's not supposed to, a bad Missouri team, Arkansas, and he could put the scare of their life into LSU or Bama or outright beat them. And he's just a variable. He is not predictable. You don't know what you're getting with him from week to week, and that's fun as hell. That is great. I like Frank Beamer as a coach at Virginia Tech, but man, that was the same team every year. That was the same team every year with him for 20 years. With Lane Kiffin, they might suck, they might be great, and we have no idea what they're going to be. And this might be, if he coaches 6 years, his 6th year in, you might not know if they're going to be great or if they're going to be terrible.
So he's Gus Malzahn?
No, because you know what Gus Malzahn is. Gus Malzahn goes 9-3 every year, and people always talk about him getting fired. Yeah, and then he beats Alabama when he's got them at home. He comes up with the craziest stuff against his rival, Winter and Jordan Hare. All right, we're going to do an NFL segment. I'm going to bring in John. We're going to talk about his favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. Good for you. This program is a freaking disaster right now. They might win the NFC East with a 7-9 record. And the way I see it, they have way too much talent. They're completely underachieving. And this finally might be the year Jason Garrett gets fired.
Excuse me.
Yes. Long overdue. Jerry Jones should have fired this man a long time ago. But the problem is, in Dallas, is their biggest problem. Jerry Jones wants credit. Jerry Jones wants to be known as a football mind. Jerry Jones is a great businessman. Jerry Jones didn't know shit about football because when they were drafting, I think it was in 2014. Was that the year Johnny Manziel came out?
Yep, 2014.
They're in the draft room. They finally built a consensus in this organization around Jerry Jones, in case y'all don't know. And it was basically a stopper. It was a breaker for him because he wanted to draft Johnny Manziel because he could sell tickets. And do you not know anything about scouting? Do you not know what a disaster this could have been? And they had to talk Jerry Jones into taking Zach Martin. Zach Martin, who plays an unsexy position, but plays on a line of scrimmage and has been all-pro like 6 years in a row and is probably going to the Hall of Fame. He's been so dominant, been the best guard in football. But, can't sell tickets that way. Just, man knows nothing about basic football. Now, they have talent. How did this happen with him there? Well, they have a general manager named Will McClay. When Will McClay got there, they started drafting all pros in the first round. Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zeke Elliott, and just finding guys. DeMarcus Lawrence in the second round. Leighton Vander Esch having a great year till this year. Injuries might have been part of it. Maybe sophomore regression. Just getting studs all over the place. A homegrown system, not signing free agents. That's what they wanted. You save money on a salary cap that way, and you get to re-sign your guys. You get to re-sign these guys to long-term contracts, and you know exactly what you are, and you're re-signing all pros.
We have some of the most talent-rich organizations in the league. Dallas. We have talent all over the board. Probably the best offensive line in the league. We have wide receivers, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. These are not dominant Julio Jones level players, but they are definitely good caliber. We have probably the best running back in the league. Dak this year was, I don't know if he still is, on pace to hit the sacred 5,000 yard mark. Yeah. The defense has pieces. We have a solid linebacker core. DeMarcus Lawrence is a great defensive end. Byron Jones is a good corner. We're a little weak at safety. But when you have talent everywhere, the only problem that you could have is your coaching. And you have to point to that. It's just so disappointing because we have the pieces there to be a top 5 team in the league, to make a Super Bowl run. We have a window right now where all these guys are young and they're coming in. Zeke is still on his rookie contract. Dak is still on his rookie contract. And
Zeke just signed an extension before the year.
Just signed his extension, right. Yes. But still all these guys are
24 years old.
Other 25 years old, and we might not do anything with it. It might come and go.
I think one of the disheartening things is, if you look at their last 2 games in particular, after this recording, they played the Bills on Thanksgiving, had a great opening drive, went right down the field and scored. Next Thursday, after that, they played the Bears. Same thing. Had like a 17-play, 75-yard drive, went right down there and scored. From that point on, in both games, they might have played the worst game they played in 5 years. They were just terrible.
And we gave up a lot of rush yards to the quarterbacks. Now with the Bills, Josh Allen is a pretty talented runner. He can use his legs pretty well.
Got that right.
Mitch Trubisky,
yeah, he is.
He's okay.
He just hasn't done it much this year.
But we gave up like 70 rush yards to Mitch Trubisky. That was disappointing. That was QB spy. Something. We have linebackers everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Even with Leighton out,
was out. Yeah.
Even with Leighton out, Jalen Smith, Sean Lee, we have guys. You're not, pushed. You're not going into the bench here, right? You have people that can step up and make plays, and it just was not happening.
Also, might have made a mistake in the coaching hire. They hired Chris Richard as an assistant from Seattle, and for some reason, every time you see like a national broadcast, you'll see Chris Collinsworth talk about him. They'll put the camera on him. They'll talk about Chris Richard, how good he is. What the are you talking about? What the are you talking about? This guy is... They've gotten worse the minute he got there. Well, they were defined last year, but the longer he coaches, and I guess they like him because he's fiery, he's energetic. I mean, he's good because they're not playing well on defense.
The media is always looking for the new young guy. They're always talking about the new age. Lamar Jackson, right? He's revolutionizing the league. Sean McVay, revolutionizing the league.
Good point.
All these young guys, they're always talking about the revolution, right? Because that's what they want. That's good TV. They want the high flying, the good scoring. That's what people want to see. And
because if you have a coach that does the same old stuff, it's not something you can cover. It's not a new story.
The caveman rock fight, right, where it's like 9 to 12 games. The league doesn't want that. That's not good for the league. Lamar Jackson running for 100 yards, making crazy spins and epic juice. That is what the league wants. And so they want to bring the spotlight to these new young guys. Rashard coaches corners.
Well, he coached essentially he's coaching like the passing game, and Rodman Nerd is coaching the rush. But it's kind of nebulous to what he's got a big hand at defense. He's virtually like co-defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But defensive back's supposed to be a specialty. He came from the Seattle scheme. He's got this prototype. He loves the big corners. Well, he didn't like Jordan Lewis who's sitting on the bench. Jordan Lewis is a little corner, and Jordan Lewis can play. Jordan Lewis can really play, but you want to put Anthony Brown on there because he's bigger.
Mitch Trubisky and Josh Allen are both guys that are talented, picked high in the first round, but the knock on both of them is their ability to read defenses is not stellar. They both have low completion percentage. For starting quarterbacks, they're both like some of the lowest in the league, I think, and they both carved us up. They ran outside of the pocket, but in the pocket, I think Mitch Trubisky was like 21 of 24. He had an incredible game, and the secondary, coaching the pass game, it just didn't work. You had a guy who has been faulty. Mitch Trubisky has not played well, and all of a sudden he comes into Dallas and he just has the game of his life. He looks like Tom Brady. He's just sitting in the pocket. It's like we have the guys to be able to stop this, right? Byron Jones is a great corner. Yeah. He is a physical prototype. You can take a guy and basically just blank him out of the game, and we still just could not stop him.
No, and like Mike Lombardi, former NFL executive, does a podcast and a good one. He mockingly called him MVP Mitch for most of this year because people were betting on the MVP on him. It's like, what are you talking about? And you want a cure for your offense not having a good day? Go play those Dallas Cowboys. Go do that because your offense is going to have a good day lately against them. And the thing is, they can still win this division.
Yeah.
They can still win this division. It all comes down. It's not going to matter. They played the Rams come up next. When we record this, hasn't happened yet. That's not going to matter because if they beat the Eagles are terrible, lost to the Dolphins. The Eagles at least have injuries. The Eagles at least have noted personnel deficiencies. They've got corners out there who are not NFL corners. They're not corners that should be on NFL rosters, maybe. They're just playing terribly. They've got receivers who are up and down. They've got injuries there. Okay, what are the Cowboys receivers a problem?
Nope.
They have talent there?
We have talent. They're playing hot potato for this division. No one wants the division. They're trying to give it to each other. And it's so sad because no one in the NFC East has ever won the division at 8-8.
No.
Right? And it looks like it's probably going to happen this year.
There's an outside, like a 1/1,000,000 of 1% chance that somebody could win it with a 6-10 record. All 4 teams could finish 6-10.
It's just
that'd be great.
It's so sad and disheartening because this division has it's very rich in terms of history. The Giants have, in terms of like the past, a dominant program for a long time. The Dallas Cowboys, America's team, the Redskins, the Hogs. You have like this division that was once so powerful and so strong is now probably the worst division in the league. I mean, we have the helmets up here looking at it right now.
They can't see it in the camera.
They can't see it in the camera. But we have all the teams up here, and we look like the worst division in the league.
And I'll tell you what, he's right about one thing. We're going to probably do a whole episode on this one day. In the 80s, the NFC East, no division in any decade ever was more dominant than the NFC East in the 80s because you had multiple-time Super Bowl winners from the Giants, multiple-time Super Bowl winners from the Redskins, Dick Vermeil at the very beginning of the decade, going through the Super Bowl, fading out. In the middle of the decade, Buddy Ryan comes in and builds the nastiest defense in football. The Dallas Cowboys, still at their peak for a while, ebbing down and then trending up when Jimmy Johnson got there at the very end. I mean, and they talk about the catch, Dwight Clark against Dallas in the NFC Championship in 81. And the 49ers were regarded as the darlings of NFL football for that decade. Well, go look at their record in the playoffs. Go look at their record against the NFC East in the playoffs because they played them a lot of times and they got shellacked. They had a game against the Giants in the Meadowlands that was 49-3. Joe Montana lost the playoff game 49-3 against the Giants. So this division was gold in the 80s. And now it's garbage truck juice.
About garbage truck juice.
Yeah.
The best team in here is either the Cowboys or the Eagles, and both are just looking terrible.
And
lost to the Jets, lost to the Dolphins.
And that was the 80s, because right now, if a 13-3 San Francisco team comes in a wild card against a 7-9 Dallas team, they're going to wood chip on them.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to destroy them.
Not even close.
Yeah. So what's the solution? Fire Jason Garrett?
Fire Jason
That's
Garrett.
a start?
A start.
Right. Keep Will McClay.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
The big thing that's going to happen that decides the fate of this program in the next coming years is if they do a coaching overhaul, what do they do with the draft management system? How many guys from there do they take out? Because if they fire all the coaches, but they also fire the GM and all the people helping with drafting, this team's going to go in the gutter.
Can't do that.
Is Jerry Jones smart enough to recognize that his drafting team is not the problem? The drafting is not the problem right now because we've gotten talent. We've gotten guys.
And they're
it's
young.
the coaching.
They're all young. And here's the name that's been bandied about already. Boy, would this be fascinating. You know what I'm about to say?
Urban Meyer or Lincoln Riley.
Urban Meyer. I forget Lincoln Riley. Just a college coach. A college genius comes in the NFL and fails all the time. But Urban Meyer's not your average college. Oh, boy. This guy, we talked out a whole segment on him, how amazing he is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know what he is in college. If he went to USC, they're going to win the national championship and dominate anywhere he went. Maybe we talk about maybe he can go to Auburn and do this. But now you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys and Urban Meyer. You talk about publicity. Any publicity here? Think anybody would care about this team?
Yeah.
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 What's your thoughts on Meyer going there? If. Okay.
It's interesting. Urban Meyer is an incredible college coach. We've talked about this in our segment about Urban Meyer. He's got the rah-rah coaching style, right? Get the team fired up. And that is almost proven to not be as effective in the NFL.
Gets them mad.
It's professionals. Yeah. It's kind of like an insult, a slap in the face, you know. They feel like it's not... They're professionals. They work 100-hour weeks. They're not taking a biology exam next
You don't have
year.
to motivate me. I'm the best. This is my job. I'm the best in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
So can he recognize that he needs to make a change in his coaching style? And if he can, what does he do? Right? Does he become a more serious, focused coach? Can he do that? Right? Does he know how to do that? And I think if he can, which he's very smart, I think he can do it. Then this could be a very, very formidable team.
So with Meyer, he is a smart person. We know this. I think he is smart enough to realize this is an entirely different level. And what is one of his many strengths? He has many strengths. I don't know if it's schematics as much. Because there are times where there would be a little bit up and down. He had a hand in offensive schematics. He loved that. But then he just knew, let me go get a Ryan Day. Let me go get Dan Mullen and hand this over to him. How is he as a CEO, as a organizer? How is he with the global view? Let me look at the entire program and see what needs to be done. How can he be that way?
He's always been good at finding assistants.
Right.
But
I mean
Dallas,
the whole program, everything involved in it.
Dallas is a good fit for him with what they have right now. I just want to say this before I answer your question.
Right.
Because they have a lot of the things that Urban Meyer has shown that he likes in the past. Urban Meyer likes a running quarterback.
Yeah.
He relies on it in close games. He likes having a strong run game with a good halfback and a strong offensive line.
This running back's familiar to him, yeah.
He likes having a really good defensive end. Right? Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young. Chase Young, he wasn't actually there to coach him, but he recruited him.
Right.
He has DeMarcus Lawrence, right? He always likes good corners. He might have a set here. This team looks like an Ohio State team, right? This team looks like it has the pieces that his teams had.
Good point.
Now, in terms of as a CEO, NFL is much different than college because money's involved, right? You don't play players in college. You have a salary cap in the NFL.
Right.
You don't legally pay players in college.
Yeah.
But you have a salary cap in the NFL. You have contracts. You have things like that. And a lot of that can be handed over to Jerry Jones, though. Jerry Jones does a lot of that stuff already. He can sell an Eskimo ice. He's a great salesman.
He's good with money.
Urban Meyer can rely on Jerry to do a lot of that stuff for him. But he needs to know when to step in and make trade deals, do things like that, not let Jerry Jones have all the power. Because when Jerry Jones has all the power, you get Johnny Manziel in the first round.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what would interest me most, because if he's any kind of successful, I believe Urban Meyer can get this team to the playoffs. All right? And we talked about what he's really known for. This is the best big game coach I've ever seen. I don't want to say of all time, but I'm trying to remember a guy who won more rivalry games as a percentage, or won more playoff games, or games against Michigan, Ohio State, games at conference championships. This guy was gold in these games. And in the NFL, your big games are Week 15, Monday night at Philadelphia to win a division. And then after that, your playoff games. That's where I want to see. That's going to be fascinating if he goes there to see how he does in these playoff games.
You have extra time to prepare, and you have infinite time with your players. In college, there's a max on how many hours. You have 20 hours with your players because they have school. In the NFL, you work 100-hour weeks. You have all the time in the world to prepare. Right. And he's going to have 2 or 3 weeks between these playoff games where he can just set traps.
If he gets a bye.
If he gets a bye.
Right.
And then in between, like, the the championship games and the Super Bowl, there's, like, a month gap. Or there's gaps in between the playoff games where he can set traps for some of these games, and he will pull upsets. I expect it. He will pull upsets if he goes to Dallas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For anywhere in the NFL, for that matter.
So would you want him? Is this your choice? If you had, slate is clean. The Clapper, Jason Garrett is gone. You get to pick your coach for the Dallas Cowboys. Who would you pick? I asked you first.
I would pick Nick Saban over Urban Meyer. Even though I don't think it's going to happen, if I could pick anybody, I would pick Nick Saban. Nick Saban has already had a stint in the NFL that didn't go as well.
Right.
He was told by his doctors that Drew Brees would not be able to play professional football, and so he didn't take Drew Brees
with the Dolphins when he was with coach of the Dolphins.
So
fire your doctor.
Fire your doctor.
Jesus.
But if he had Drew Brees, if he had taken Drew Brees in the first round, if they had, how would that have turned out differently? But he looks like a more NFL coach, right? He already has the seriousness. He doesn't coach in a college way. He coaches like an NFL coach in college. He's all seriousness. He's all business. You see him. He looks more like an NFL coach than Urban Meyer. And while I'm sure that Urban Meyer could adapt or become, Nick Saban doesn't need to adapt. He doesn't need to become, He already knows what he's doing.
Right.
And talk about someone who's great at finding assistants. The Nick Saban coaching tree is huge. He finds guys all the time, just pumping them out
until they play him.
Until they play him,
he's like 17-0 against his assistants.
And then he,
I think Belichick is something similar, which tells you something about that. Now, that's interesting because people are already trying to use Saban's age against them in recruiting. That's not an issue in the NFL. Your age, and the man is, I think, 66. I'm not sure, but he doesn't look his age, or 64. He looks young for his age. He looks got plenty of energy. And Pete Carroll is the oldest coach in the league. You can have an older coach in the NFL. That works fine. When he was in the NFL before he was the Dolphins head coach, he was an assistant for a long time. Very highly respected. Everybody knows he worked with Bill Belichick in the Browns, was defensive coordinator. I don't know how the team lost the game. Right? Kirk Ferentz coaching the offensive line with the Browns. I digress. But when he got to the Dolphins, people who were covering that team were saying that was the most organized and disciplined practice they had ever seen from an NFL coach. Well, he didn't succeed at the Dolphins. Granted, he had Dante Culpepper at quarterback. It happens. Would you, if Nick Saban went to the Dallas Cowboys or anywhere, the Cleveland Browns, would you be surprised shocked, oh my God, if Nick Saban went in there and won a Super Bowl with his franchise?
No.
Not
at all.
Nobody would.
Not at all.
Nobody would.
He's learned from the best. He's learned from Bill Belichick, right?
They learned from him. Both.
They learned from him.
He's that good. Yeah.
But he looks NFL ready.
Yeah.
But does he want to? He might not want to leave Alabama.
He might want to leave Alabama except for one thing. He's said before that he felt like more at home in the NFL. And is Nick Saban competitive?
Oh, of course.
Do you think Nick Saban likes the fact that the only black mark on his entire sterling resume is what? You know what I'm going to say?
That he failed the NFL?
He failed in the NFL. And now he gets a chance. And he didn't have to go to some sad sack, the Arizona Cardinals, where he could actually be an afterthought. No. This is interesting. I don't know who's going to say this. That is not bad. Nick Saban and the Dallas Cowboys.
There's no rumors about this, though. This
No.
is not like
No.
in the works. We don't.
No.
He just said any coach in the league, like who would you want to take if it was a blank slate? And that's the
good.
first thought that came to mind.
That's
even
good.
over Urban Meyer. The odds of that happening are very slim, but if it did happen, it would be pretty cool.
They would not look clueless on game day.
Nope, not like
No.
now.
No, unless Gus Malzahn coaches the Washington Redskins. Okay. All right. I love you. Thanks for the segment.
Love you. Bye.
So again, on behalf of myself and John, thanks for joining us this week on OurSport. All our social media platforms are listed in the description box below. Come join us if you like. Tell your friends about us and subscribe to our notifications. We're going to be here every week. Thanks again for joining us.